I don't know if it is on account of the Jeffries note that has done this, but a 6% uptick for enterprises, 4% uptick for ports, so very strong show there. And those are the two which are center stage really. Aside of that, Coal India, Bajaj Finance, L&T, it's across the board. Just before I hand it over to Tamanna, can you pull up the intraday of Adani Enterprises? Because I think just the way the stock has moved today deserves that special mention. It started off flattish or maybe a couple of percentage points lower, but actually no. It started off maybe a couple of percentage points lower, but actually no. It started off flattish and is currently at the high point of the day. Really strong up move for both of these names. Strange to see that one brokerage note is doing this. Maybe there's something more to it, but very strong rally in the Adani duo today. Tamanna.
Yeah. I think markets will have to wait and see if they're gripped with that afternoon fever, which we've seen for the last several days, because the Nifty seeming like it's going back into negative territory. The mid-cap 150 also now turning flattish and turning, off its day's highs. Let me pull up the small cap index as well, and you see the same kind of a situation there. I just want to pull up India VIX for a second, because that's been on top of mind, and you're seeing that was down about 2% at one point. That's also now looking flat. So this is a very important session to figure out if the mood is changing once again, and are you seeing FIR action. Now, having said that, let's focus on specific stocks this afternoon. Welspun Corporation, Swan Energy, both getting beaten down because of numbers that the street did not appreciate, and you're seeing that impact. Nearly 8.5% down on Welspun Corp. Margins have seen a big drag there. Swan Energy also a drop in profitability. Top line was okay, but not really palatable to the street, about 5% down. And Bharat Dynamics is the other one. Positive results. The stock has done well, but not been able to hold up in this bout of profit booking. Flat to negative right now at 1545. Niraj talked about the Jeffries note on Adani, and if that's the impact, then you've seen it across the board. Adani Power, 10% up, 8% up on Adani Total. Entertainment and Green, we also spoke about. Entertainment, of course, Enterprise, Adani Enterprise, about 6% up, and Adani Green, about 4% up. So across the board, you're seeing an impact over there. Standard disclosures, of course, you're watching NDTV. Now, Zomato is the other one that I wanted to talk about. There's a Macquarie note today, which talks about how Jio Financial Services foray into its app. They've launched the beta version, might have a negative on players in the same space, and Blinkit is one of them, which will have a listed impact in terms of Zomato. That stock about 2% down today. GMR Airports, the other one, which has been responding to results positive through most of the day and is managing to hold on to its gains right now, about 3.5-4% up. Ipca Labs is the other one that I just wanted to pull out. So its numbers came a couple of days ago, but the con call has definitely dampened spirits, and my colleague Varsha, who tracks the space very, very closely, was talking about how the earnings estimates have been cut by the management in that con call, which has seen a 7.5% cut. But we have a surprise for you on this edition of India Market Close, and you're used to seeing three of us on the opening show. Samina is joining us. Samina, is it to kick off the excitement we're going to see in the next 48 hours with elections and exit polls and more?
Glad, Tamanna, that the market is not getting very excited right now. So we're stable, but very, very volatile on the street, and it's within a tight range. So well off the day's high point, which was 22,653. We are sub 22,500, nearly 178 points off from our day's high point, and that's what you want to take note of. So the market, while is trading in a tight range, it's actually unable to hold on to any of those gains that we've seen in the early minutes of trade today. Across the broader markets, it's not too bad. There's a little bit of outperformance coming in from the broader markets. PSU banks aren't doing too badly. Real estate is also seeing some buying. Metals is also turning out to be one of the top green spots on the screen. What you want to keep in mind is that for the week itself, and this is of course the last full week of trade before we go into that big event on Tuesday, the Nifty is down 1.5% between Monday and the kind of levels that we're seeing right now, which is sub 22,500. You have a couple of those PSU stocks that are doing well. So BEML, Hindustan Zinc, Beach are trading positive, looking good. BEL also having a positive morning. As we see, Hindustan Zinc is also trading firm. On the sell side, you've got stocks like Mazgaon Docks that are seeing a little bit of profit taking. But very clearly, the star of today is Adani Group stocks. So across the board, the gains are obvious, pretty much trading at the day's high point, defying the broader sentiment in the market, which is one of caution, one of staying on the sidelines. Interestingly, there was an expectation that the VIX would jump to levels of 26 and 27. Fortunately, that's not happened just yet. Is it not going to happen on Monday is anybody's guess, but for now, though, it seems a lot more control around 24 is what we see it. So that's the market. It's volatile, in a tight range, struggling to hold on to some of those early morning gains on the very first day of trade of the new series. But if just to put a number to that, if you look at the call premium of 23,000 for the 27th of June, that's actually gone up substantially in the last few hours of trade. So the sentiment is there. Now, it just seemed like it's going to be cautious for the next 2 days of trade. But Soni Patnaik, AVP of GM Financial Services, joins in with her view on the markets. Soni, hi, thanks for joining in. It's an interesting afternoon, volatile. We've off about 170 points from the day's high point. Very cautious. I think that's probably the best way to describe trade this afternoon. Would you consider initiating maybe a 23,000 call for the 27th of June expiry, or is that being too ambitious?
Hi, good afternoon, Samina. Thank you for having me on the show. Rightly put, very cautious approach, and this approach should be maintained. If we just look at from the data perspective, then, yesterday the final expiry rollovers showed that Nifty has taken some bets on the shorter side. So there are some bearish bets that has gotten rolled over from the May to June series. So not exactly the best of idea to just go ahead and, buy a call option right now. Perhaps it will be wiser to just hedge the positions the way Nifty is giving a weekly closing just at the edge of 22,500. It is going to be very important to watch ahead. So immediate resistance stands about 22,800. Beyond that, you can see 23,000. A lot of aggressive call writing is taking place. So that is also going to act as a stiff resistance. So until and unless these resistances are not crossed, short covering in Nifty is going to be very difficult. On the downside, any downside, you can see that if it's not able to cross these resistances, it can actually go and retest the low levels of 22,000 support once again. Also, ironically, where we have the highest put writers play. So I think this is going to be the range, and the volatility is yet to remain. So just expect a lot of swings happening for the next 2 to 3 days. And it will be wiser just to hedge the positions with buying of put options instead of call.
Soni, you're right. It is a tough market to trade, and getting aggressive on either side is the last thing you want to do. And also going in unhedged may not be advisable at this stage. But in terms of trades, do you have any recommendations at all, either on the long side, short side, any sort of option strategies that one could look at?
So, Samina, first would be from the stock-specific perspective, then yes, stock-specific action are holding quite strongly and better. The first stock pick would be in the power space. We've seen very strong, good momentum happening, and also power is one of the few sectors which has shown very strong rollovers from May to June series. So the pick would be Tata Power over here. We've seen very strong long rollovers happening, and there's also a bullish engulfing candle pattern taking place on daily charts for Tata Power. So from current levels, one can buy, keeping a stop loss of 425 and a target of 460. The second stock pick would be from the defense space, that is Bharat Electronics. 95% of rollovers. The rollovers are seen on the longer side for June series. The stock has given exceptional month and monthly breakout on charts as well. So even from current levels, one can buy, accumulate the stock on any declines up to 270. Play the stock for a medium-term perspective. Keep a stop loss of 240 and a target of 340, 350. So BEL is to be played, with a bet of the entire June series, and Tata Power is for more of a short-term trading perspective idea.
All right, Soni, they're talking about BEL and others, but the focus this afternoon also on Adani Group stocks that we've been speaking about with the standard disclosures. We've seen the impact on Adani Enterprise, Adani Ports across the board. And one of the reasons could be a Jeffries note today. Puneet is standing by with more details.
A detailed analysis by Jeffries into the Adani Group as well as the other companies of the group as general. So we start with Adani Group's overall picture of what Jefferies thought. They have seen that 40% EBITDA growth as well as leverage has come down for FY24, which is one of the key highlights for the Adani Group. When you look at 2024, we have seen that the group has contained the debt as well as leverage ratio in 2024. That's as per Jefferies. They are seeing that promoters increasing their stake is a key positive among the group companies, and the market cap has rebounded in this way. Now if we see that the group is back on its expansion spree and eyeing roughly $90 billion of capex in the next decade. But Jeffrey also says that net debt to EBITDA has improved substantially to 3.3 times versus 5 times previously in the same time last year. When you look at Adani Enterprise now, it is scaling its captive capacity going forward as well towards green hydrogen, and production is expected by FY27. The brokerage also says the Navi Mumbai airport is likely to be commissioned by the fourth quarter of 2025, while data centers, which is one of the key growth segments in the country, and Adani Group is contributing to that as well, and it's scaling up very strongly. It has said that management is continuing to guide on doubling its cement capacity from the current levels, and which is a key positive. While we look at the cement, the EBITDA per ton will also improve to roughly 1400 to 1500 rupees per ton by roughly FY28. Finally, on Adani Ports, there has been a strong CAGR of roughly 18% in EBITDA, and is expecting the same momentum to continue between FY24 to 29. And finally, on Adani Green, it has raised its 2013 power capacity targets from roughly 45 gigawatts to 50 gigawatts. Now this is a really strong picture coming in from Jefferies, and they have roughly a price target of roughly 3,800 with a buy on Adani Enterprises. Back to you.
Thanks a lot for that, Puneet. And this is what a concentrated trade or a trade wherein all the stocks move in tandem does. My colleague Sajid tells me that the combined market cap of the Adani Group has gone up by 1 lakh crore, and which is quite stunning really. Standard disclaimer, of course, the Adani Group owns NDTV, and you're watching this NDTV Profit, but just the kind of gains that have happened here are mesmerizing. Maybe we spoke about it, but before we take that very quick break, Sony, maybe you spoke about some of the Adani Group stocks, but if you haven't, all of them are up in tandem today. From the current levels, is there one that you would pick up for a trade, considering that we are hitting the exit polls tomorrow?
Hi, good afternoon, Niraj.
Very good
Definitely,
afternoon.
I think Adani Enterprises looking quite strong. It has also seen very good short squeeze rollovers from for the Jones series, and the stock is looking strong to test higher levels of 3,500, 3,550 for the coming week, and one can continue to hold it with a trailing stop loss of 3,320, which is a good support. So I think from current levels also one can enter and accumulate and recreate the longs for targets of 35, 3520.
Okay, stay on, Sony. So much more to talk about. Thanks for that update. Well, she's going for the strongest one at 3,401. We take a quick break. All eyes are on elections, and we'll be right back with a special coverage of elections and what they might mean for equity markets. Stay tuned. You don't want to miss this. Back with India Market Close, and we're doing a special version of the editor's cut sans Alex, of course. But what we're going to try and do is 5 of us in the studio, and each of us will present our views on a few key aspects around markets and elections. Naturally, Agam and Sajid join us. Obviously, Agam will talk a lot about derivatives and what the picture could be like. We know that Tamanna will speak about the political aspect. And between Samina, me and Sajid, we'll try and talk about what corporate and as well as markets could be thinking of. I'll start off with not the positioning, but the electoral fervor. And Tamanna, let's try and dissect this. Tomorrow, the exit polls. For people who are looking at the last half an hour of trade and wondering what the exit polls could show and what is it that they should keep an eye out for, what are the key things to keep in mind?
The first thing to keep in mind is exit polls are not an accurate representation of what will happen on June 4th.
But the market could react.
The market will react because the market is hungry to get information in advance and any cues. And the fact is that more and more over the last few elections, including state elections, you would have seen this in December as well, the ranges of the exit polls have gotten wider and wider.
Right.
Because it's the era of social media and no pollster wants to be caught and trolled afterwards saying that, your poll was completely off. So your vote share range and your seat share range sometimes is as high in state elections as plus minus 10 seats. It will be even more in a general election. So it will give enough room for people to read what they will. The likelihood is that the exit poll may underestimate what the final result is going to be. Why am I saying that? That happened in 2014, that happened in 2019, when the exit polls showed that a BJP-led government was coming to power, but underestimated the final result. It's not an exact
state
science.
Elections recently, right? They completely underestimated.
They were off. So they could be off. And that's important to see, that you don't know till June 4th.
Got it. Okay. Anything that you're particularly watching out for, Tamanna, when it comes to these exit polls? Any particular constituency, state, anything else?
So Maharashtra, number one, because nobody can understand what to do in Maharashtra and how to read Maharashtra. Remember, Maharashtra has been a super blockbuster for the NDA because the BJP and the Sena marriage, however troubled it was, worked in the context of Maharashtra. You had the Marathi Manus plus Hindutva combo with the Modi factor all working for them. Now, since 2019, it is shattered in so many pieces and parts that it's difficult to predict whether the core voter is going to vote for Uddhav Thackeray, seeing him as wronged. Will they vote for Eknath Shinde as a proxy because they want to bet on, Prime Minister Modi's continuity? What's going to happen between Sharad Pawar and Ajit Pawar? Now, this Pune Porsche case is, in the mix. So, Maharashtra is the X factor and it's 48 seats. So, Maharashtra is one. I want to see what's happening in Karnataka. The BJP did very well in Karnataka in 2019, but the Congress has won the last state election decisively. Does that put a dent in Karnataka? Does the BJP gain in Odisha? They're going it alone.
Right.
And does their bet on Chandrababu Naidu for the NDA work out in Andhra Pradesh? Because that means a whole change in regime from YSR to YSR Jagan Reddy's party to Andhra Pradesh. So a lot of exciting things to watch out from those exit polls.
And by the way, two very important states, viewers, keep in mind, sorry Sajid, we have very limited time, but just the point that these two states, the BJP haven't had too many seats in 2019 and therefore very interesting. You have 30 seconds.
No, I just wanted to ask
30 seconds, Sajid.
Yeah, I just want to ask Tamanna, what role has finances of parties played in this election?
Any thoughts here?
Can you elaborate on that question?
The amount of money they have for campaigning means
obviously. It's an expensive business. It's an expensive business, and after a point, you have to have money yourself as a candidate as well. There is a cap by the Election Commission on how much you spend. But remember, this is the time of social media. Social media may have evened the ground a bit. As well, but of course finances will play a big role. There's no doubt about it. That's part
I could have given that answer too, by the way.
No, but what I'm hearing is contrary here from the people who have been there. Many of the, this time you had not only the public sector people volunteering for being on the election duty, but private sector bank employees have been asked to go and do election duty. And the feedback which is coming from there is that this thing is making a difference on the ground.
Okay, interesting. Well, something that we should dwell upon for sure. But right now, let's try and turn the focus back on what all of this could mean for the market. So before I come to Samina and Sajid, Agam, to you.
Yeah.
Positioning. In the morning, you spoke about a stretch rubber band.
Yeah.
Right? We haven't quite seen that come back with a bang, but we're in the green, nevertheless, marginally at that. What do the positions indicate?
Well, at the moment, it does seem like the markets are either complacent or they are very sure of the outcome of the election. The reason I say this is back in 2014, the India Volatility Index, 2 days before the outcome of the election, was at around 35, 37. Come to 2019, once again, the India Volatility Index was at around 34, 35, 36. 2 days before this election, we are at 23 and we're looking at a decline of 6%. What does that indicate? That traders to a certain extent are, well, a bit sure of what's going to happen as far as the outcome is concerned. Secondly, what are your option premiums indicating when it comes to this particular weekly options expiry? Just about a 400 to 500 point move from here on. That's nothing at all. That only means 23,100, 23,200 if you have a favorable outcome. Of course, you have an unfavorable outcome as compared to what the markets are working. That could completely change the factor of the game. But for now, that's what the options market is telling you. About the stretched rubber band, Niraj, what we actually are looking at the moment is that there, at least until yesterday, there were only 13% longs from the FII point of view, as against 87% shorts. And should things perhaps play in favor of the markets, we will see a trigger of short covering, and that should lead the markets even higher eventually to 23,000, but not much further than that.
Very quickly, I know Sajid wants to come in, but just one very quick question. Me and Samina had spotted this, that the 24,000 strike was also very active. 20,500 was very active 4 or 5 days ago. Are those still active on the call side?
They're active, but to very quickly tell you that there is more of an activity here because there will also be certain hedges further out.
But are they very active?
They're not extremely active. They're not that active, just about as much as you'd expect.
Got it.
My sense is that there is no directional trade which is getting played in the market today. Like in 2019.
They're going to wait for 1st June.
They're going to wait. No, they're going to wait for 1st June or 3rd June is where the direction trade may come.
1st June evening, in the sense you will know the data and then you know how to react to third.
Long unwindings happening from foreign investors. There is clearly the play here is about 2,000 crores of Nifty premium open interest turnover. That's the play. That's not because futures. There's a huge unwinding that has happened yesterday for foreign investors. The only DIs have been very stable. They haven't done much. So the play is happening on the options side on the Nifty options. And if you look at the options premium open interest, that's around 2,000 odd crores, which is under play for the election.
Okay. Now, what is big money doing is also important. Sabina, any thoughts here?
I don't know about big money, but just to put all this in perspective, there's nobody on the street who's talked about 25,000 on the Nifty. So even if Mr. Modi comes with the biggest victory, what is that going to do for the markets? Are we going to go to 25,000? Very unlikely at this stage. And it's got to be realistic about these numbers, right? And to talk to you about just what FIs have been done, because we usually get quite caught up about what foreigners are doing, how do they view the India political setup. Global funds have sold $2.9 billion this month. This is, and of course, most of them have cited not politics, but rich valuations in India, and that's why they're sitting on the sidelines. That's one. Two, what we noticed was FI net short. Now, again, they've been all over the place over the last couple of days, but net shorts have gone up from 5,000 crores to 2.9 lakh crores, 2.9 lakh crores on Thursday. So big move in 1 day of trade between Wednesday and Thursday. And I think Agam and me talked about it this morning, right? When you have a global fund, you have something called an IPS, which is an investment policy statement. During a case when there's geopolitical stress, this also happened at a time when war was on the horizon. Anything that could potentially be a black swan for a specific country or the group. Large funds are not allowed to go naked in that sense. So you have to hedge. And that's not got to do with whether Modi is going to come in with 310, 330, 400. I don't even think that they think of these numbers. All they want is political stability, which is almost a given. The only article that I came across was UBS, which said or painted a scenario that if the ruling government doesn't come in, then there's a 20% downside. But I've not seen any other global brokerage talk about what if. There is no what if. It's a number game, and as long as everything is stable,
Bernstein has 3 scenarios, and one of those 3 scenarios is a situation where the India alliance comes in.
And to be fair, sitting in the country, we find it so hard to tell and go into these conversations. Somebody sitting outside is going to go in hedged. I mean, it's a given, right?
Yeah, it's a given. Maybe that's what's played out in the last 24 to 48 hours. A lot of long positions were built. Maybe what has just happened is these significant long positions have been unwound, and there are some hedges that have been built around it. Because why should a fund which has got large amounts of money here go into it naked long or naked short, or not have a hedge?
And
so I think it's an important point.
There is not too much of time. This time, of course, you're reacting on a market day.
Yeah.
So you can't hit an upper circuit. You're not going to get a 10% value on day one at 10 a.m. Once we know the results. So last time this happened, you had the outcome on the weekend and the markets opened on Monday.
By the way, it's not going to be as volatile as you think, because there have been some regulations put in by the regulator.
No, in fact, I don't think. I think they did this in a study with 32 managers, and they said you might see a 2 to 3% uptick one way or the other. So it may not be as insane in that sense.
I want to paint these scenarios. I want to paint these scenarios. So BJP over 303 does, or maybe best case closer to 350 odd. The market is still placid?
No, I don't think so.
Goes nuts?
Goes nuts.
Okay.
What is going nuts?
Going nuts is
3-4% uptick?
At the very least, yes. I would suspect. The only caveat is that because we are sitting at circa 23,000, it's not a cheap valuation.
So that's why we corrected
the possibility
about 3%.
We corrected 4%. We corrected 4%
The possibility of the downside being extended if the verdict is not in favor
of June,
is
the
much higher.
markets will go crazy, no?
Okay, but
systems will go crazy.
So programmers. So 300 plus BJP. You're saying I'm saying 315 plus. Market goes nuts. BJP sub 303, even a 290. They can run the government even on their own technically, but sentimentally.
Yeah, as you said in the morning as well, Tamanna, that market may want to believe that, maybe they can't go with all the policies that they want, even though they're in a simple majority. I think the worry is only if they are below the majority mark.
No, I'm saying range bound, then not nuts, but a little happy.
Yeah.
And of course, then black swan scenario, which is not being expected by anyone, but then if there is a split house, uncertainty, then you have sharp pain.
Yeah, but just one last point that I want to leave with this, it's a simple thing we've discussed enough number of times, but there's a graphic that our producer Mahima has made out here about the Nifty performance, and just good to remind everybody every single time. Look at what the indices do 1 month, 3 months, 6 months later. Sometimes they correct, sometimes they fall, but over a 5-year period from 2009 to 2014, 14 to 19 and 19 to 24, the markets have given rallies of 55%, 52% and 75% respectively. So over the long term, it's all good.
And I think this is all very critical for a trader. As an investor, if you're doing staggered investments, this is actually doesn't do anything in terms of your equity portfolio. So it's great conversation.
So SIP is in the
SIP is the way to go.
Especially if it's coming into force in the first week of the month.
Exactly. You know exactly. Double down, upfront, wo sab kar sakte hai SIP ke saath.
Nevertheless, I think we can go on and on with this conversation, but we need to address the markets as well and see what's happening there. So we'll take a very short break. We're coming back with F&O strategy, top picks, and what you should do to set yourself for a very, very exciting week. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. You're watching India Market Close. It's the last half hour of trade as we wrap up this week. It's been a tough week if you were a trader. Markets are down about 1.5% from Monday to today. We are struggling to keep up with some of those gains we saw in early trade. The Nifty trades over 150 points lower from the day's openings. Well, the breadth of the market's not too bad, but the bias clearly is on the downside. In terms of stocks, you've got the likes of an AU Small Finance, Yes Bank, not actually doing too badly in trade, marginal gains sticking in there. Jindal Stainless Steel, PB Fintech, Adani Group stocks are holding the Nifty together in trade today. And apart from that, on the sell side, Welspun Corp is taking to the chin on back of weak earnings. Ipca Labs, Page Industries are some of the other losers. Sony, any trade? I mean, I know this will take a lot of guts, but any trade to initiate, buy today, sell on Monday, or sell today, buy on Monday?
So, Samina, we'll go with the contra call we can see today in Jindal Steel. I know it's down, but then it's actually approaching its support levels. So Jindal Steel has a very strong support of 1,000 odd levels. It has given a very good breakout after a long time. Plus, the only metal stock which has given very strong rollovers above 92%. So I think the stock is looking quite strong and it's approaching the support. So from current levels, keep a stop loss of 1,000 for a BTST trade and a target of 1,065, 1,070 can be seen.
How does Vodafone look? It's been showing some strength in the last couple of days, but unfortunately, every time it shows some strength, it goes in an F&O ban. Today being an exception at 15.20, what are you doing with Vodafone idea?
Any stock on charts, we can see that, of course, it's trying to bounce up to levels of 16.2 can be seen. That will be a good resistance zone. I think if it's able to cross and sustain above 16.3, you can see some further upside towards 18 odd levels. It may be a bit of a positional play, so just expect to go it in tranches. From current level, important is to keep a support stop loss of 14.6.
All right. So that's the take on Vodafone this afternoon by Sony Patnaik. Sony, I just wanted to talk to you about a clutch of stocks that were doing quite badly, maybe because of results. But I want to know, what would be your view for investors right now who are kind of stuck with what they're seeing. Swan Energy is one of them on the upside. Another one would be Apollo Hospitals, Bharat Dynamic. Any views on any of these counters that have been buzzing today?
I think we'll start with Swan Energy. Looks quite weak on charts, and the next support that I can see on charts is coming approx to be around 535 to 532 levels. So that can be the level it can test from these levels. I think just avoid Swan Energy and not to hurry into any sort of a buying. Even if we talk about Apollo Hospital, some fresh short built-up position can be seen today in Apollo Hospital. The support is of 57.50, 57.60. If we look at the lows, 57.40 is a low that it has made today. If it breaks that support, again, you can see further downside towards 5600. So the stock remains quite under selling pressure with resistance of 59.50 for now.
So that's the take on Apollo Hospitals. Bharat Dynamic was the last one. Sony, did you address that?
BDL, if I can see, that stock is looking quite decent. In fact, it has a good support of 1470, can continue to hold with the stop loss of 1470 as a trailing. The stock can definitely retest its previous highs of 1680 odd levels. I think one can just continue to hold, and there's a good support of 1470. So that can be the support stop loss.
Yeah, we'll get Sony's view on the Adani pack as well, which has been buzzing today. But let's go across quickly to Agam. Agam, what kind of action are you seeing? Just a few minutes, I would say, less than an hour before we shut shop. for the weekend, and then you have these major cues that the markets will be responding to early next week from Monday morning onwards.
Right, but it's been quiet. It's been fairly quiet as far as Friday is concerned. A little bit of choppiness here and there, but mostly range bound as far as the Nifty goes. And we haven't seen as much increase in OI, despite the fact it's early days. It was sure a 7% added, but we're also very early on in the June expiry, and it's been a flat market for the spot. The Bank Nifty again, not too much to speak for. There hasn't been as much of a divergence, but still the Bank Nifty continues to outperform the Nifty, with a little bit of unwinding coming in here as well. There's a little bit of hesitance to carry in fresh positions, perhaps on expected lines, because you wouldn't want to be going on whole hog into a very large event. But as far as the option market is concerned, that's where perhaps we're looking at very, very mixed trends. And let's take a look at the overall open interest picture. The 23,000 call is the one with the maximum open interest by far. This is the 6th of June expiry. And it does seem like, while we see it from a writer's point of view, I'm sure there'll be plenty of bets out there which will seek to go long on the 23,000 call. We're about 500 points away. It's not too far away. And should we see the markets move up significantly over the course of the next two trading sessions, that is Monday and Tuesday, you never know what the cost of these calls would be. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's move on and talk about the other factors. Of course, in terms of stocks, it's been a fairly mixed market, but we do have shorts for something like an Ipca Laboratories and Berger Paints, longs for Hindustan Copper and Vodafone. Among stocks which are seeing unwinding, we do have long unwinding for Sun TV and Bata India, AB Capital, Oracle Financial Services, and ICICI Bank. Looking at a little bit of short covering. All in all, a mixed market, a quiet market, perhaps also participants being careful at the moment as we move into what potentially could be very, very choppy and perhaps the most volatile trading days of this year.
Indeed. Thanks, Agam. Too early to say that, but of course we might have a few days such as the budget, and you just never know globally over the next couple of 6-8 months in terms of volatile trade. But Devin Choksi now joins in. Devin, good afternoon. Thanks for joining in. Last 20 minutes to go before we go into next week and the big event on Tuesday. How are you placing your bets? Are you doing anything at all, or just status quo on the portfolio?
Tamanna, good afternoon. I stay invested. I don't create new positions ahead of the event, and I would like to play safe, particularly because I think the investment is already there in the portfolio. There is no need to play anything momentum at this point of time. Plenty of opportunities going to be made available to us in the market. There is no need for any kind of a FOMO feeling at this point of time. So this is the view we have shared with our clients also. And since the quality of the stocks and the business in which we have invested, they matter most to us. We believe that even post-election results also, these stocks, their quality, their fundamentals in the business will prevail upon. And ultimately, I think they will continue to produce better returns to the portfolio. So stay away from the momentum for the time being. Allow the event to pass by and then start operating afresh thereafter.
Devin, are you sitting on any cash currently? Are you fully invested?
Fully invested, maybe partly some cash I think you always keep in your portfolio, but otherwise by and large fully invested.
Yeah. Devin, wanted to know your take on the Jeffries note on the Adani group and the kind of reaction we've seen in the stocks today, of course, with the standard disclosures. Do you think that could be one of the triggers? And which of the stocks from this pack would you be most excited about?
So I think good part about infrastructure business is that when they start generating cash, they have two things, or they take care of two aspects. One, on one side, I think whatever the debt which was created, I think that particular debt is getting repaid because they're generating the cash. Second thing, because of the cash being generated, I think the other investment, the new investment, takes care of, I think, the cash first and then after, I think, the return. So from a perspective of looking at the entire infrastructure basket of Adani Group, be it in Adani Enterprise, wherein you have road assets, you have airport assets, you have data centers, and the new energy business, which also they are incubating in this particular company, they look, I think, quite promising, largely because of the fact that these assets would eventually get monetized in a span of next 2 to 3 years from now. And at the same time, I think these assets are already, particularly airport asset, road assets, they are already generating cash. So to a greater extent, I think I would like to see these assets getting monetized and get separate valuation thereafter. Similarly, the port business looks, I think, absolutely convincing and interesting, largely because of the fact that 500 million metric tons of capacity is already built in. And going forward, I think they are going to see the mix of high-yielding cargoes, which is going to probably drive not only the revenue but also at the bottom line there is, I think, the profits. So from that perspective, even the port business looks interesting. Rest of the companies, they are interestingly positioned, of course, I think, including the transmission business. However, I think I prefer that I think the bigger opportunity should be there in these two companies to begin.
Right. Sony, I wanted to ask you that question as well on the charts. If you look at the entire pack, what would be your pecking order in terms of technicals?
Tamanna, we've already discussed. The first is the Adani Enterprises looking quite strong, and the levels already shared. I think my targets I've given is for 35.20 can be seen in the coming days. The second pick would be, of course, Adani Ports. We've seen another good a bullish candle today. It's a good long built-up positions, plus it's also showing you good signs of bullish engulfing candle pattern. It has also given an option chain breakout today above 1400 levels. So Adani Port is also looking quite strong to test 1500 levels in the coming weeks. So I think these two stocks would be in the the first order would be Adani Enterprises, and the second can be Adani Ports.
That's the Adani story. There's a Jefferies upgrade, and of course the stocks across the board are looking very excited in trade. One counter that was a street favorite for quite some time now is seeing some selling since its earnings, and it's Zomato I'm talking about. The stock released, in fact, Macquarie put out a note on Zomato talking about its underperformed rating. Mahima is joining us with more on that. Mahima, this was a street favorite. There were levels of 240, 250 target prices on Zomato doing the rounds. Post its earnings, it's been on a downward trajectory, and now a report by Macquarie with an underperform. What's changed?
So Macquarie has come out with a note on Zomato where they have rated Zomato underperform with a target price of 96 rupees, which poses a downside of 47%. Now what they're saying is that competitive intensity from JioMart's e-commerce quick launch is going to hurt Blinkit. What they're also saying is that multiple incumbent e-commerce platform launches to slow down the growth momentum in the top 8 cities for both Zomato and Swiggy. They've also mentioned that competition from BB Now, which has noted shortening delivery of times, will pose some kind of threat to Blinkit. They've also mentioned that Amazon is ramping up its Fresh, Flipkart is working on its 3P model, Zepto is in discussion to raise another $300 million going forward and has a valuation of 2.5 to 3 billion, is something that can hurt Blinkit. And lastly, they've also said that with Swiggy coming up with its IPO, Blinkit may see some kind of short-term hurt. Now, they're also saying that it considers Blinkit as an efficient operator. It estimates Zomato's stock price, which is embedded 35 to 40% of 10-year revenue CAGR, and it continues to see downside to margins for Blinkit due to competition. So this is the entire summary of what Macquarie has posted for Zomato.
Maybe a bit of a stretch that one beta app is going to impact Zomato, and not just Zomato, the Blinkit bit of it, because we don't really know what that app is going to do. But nevertheless, Sony, Zomato, some would argue it was due for a correction in any case, and it's coming off its lows right now. What are your views on Zomato?
So on charts, of course, there's a lot of resistance that can be seen from current levels. I think it will be quite important for it to recross 185 levels. Only above that, you can see some levels of, further upside towards 195, 198.6 can be seen. So I think that's going to stay as a very important level for now. On the downside, 170, 165. Now that range is also holding a very strong support. So it could be a sideways trend between these range. So either it has to break either side of the levels to see some further trend.
Right. Devin, fundamentally, does Zomato look like a stock you want to avoid for now? You've also got a Swiggy listing lined up soon, and the numbers were a little bit of a disappointment for the stream. Tough to call it, but what is the word on Zomato now?
So maybe I think on one side the numbers may improve also gradually. I think I'm not against that. But look at the valuation that you have given on 1,200 crore worth of profit base, which is probably increasing at the rate of 20%, so which may get doubled in a span of around 4.5 years or 5 years time. And on the top of it, I think you are already valuing the company above 1 lakh crore. So frankly speaking, I think one will have to, find some rationale to not pay such a significant amount of premium. That is the first point. Second most important point is, I think, the business model per se. Out here, I think you have got Blinkit, which is a last mile delivery mechanism that they have built in on an instantaneous basis. Over there, I think JioMart is competing with them through their Kirana store battery of JioMart that they have created. Now, they are local stores. They have got already, I think, the supply chain mechanism in place. They have got the last mile delivery mechanism also in place with the Dunzo acquisition that they did. So in my viewpoint, I think this could be, I think, a tough one, frankly speaking. And that is where probably Zomato, Swiggy, JioMart could possibly compete big time. So at such point of time, I think if you cannot make the success out of the model, market will not give you the premium. So here the question is that I think market continues to give you premium, provided you keep producing the success out of the business model. But should that not be the case, then probably I think the premium is not given. And that's where I see some amount of threat on the premium valuation at this point of time.
Recovery in the markets once again back in the green for the Nifty and the Sensex. The biggest beat today is the Nifty IT. But I just want to pull up the intraday of the Bank Nifty, which is racing fairly well in the last bit of trade if you look at that chart. So I don't know if that's some FI interest coming back, or what are the, we'll pull up the components of the Bank Nifty to see what's working this afternoon. Our private banks having another good day, and it seems like a bit of a mix over there. I mean, if I put AU Small Finance Bank out of that, but ICICI, HDFC not doing too badly at all. Devin, I had a follow-up with you on the whole Zomato story in the Macquarie note. Now, the basis of that seems to be this app, right? And what kind of competition it will have. It's in the digital finance space for everyday financial needs is what the exchange filing says. How does that impact, say, a Paytm?
Well, I think Paytm, lesser we speak, better at this point of time, largely because of the fact that I think the business model has to get re-established. I'm not against, I think, the app per se, but the fact is that I think the business model on which I think they've been counting their revenue, etc., I think it's gone. We'll have to re-establish this particular business model should we want to discuss this subject once again afresh. But coming to the main point out here, I think where exactly you make money, I think that is what we have probably understood slightly more in detail. On one side, you have got the payment in place. On the other side, you have got the supply chain for the goods and services that you basically, I think, deliver to the end customer be in place. And in between, I think you are basically having a customer interface, be it called JioMart, be it called Amazon, Flipkart, or whatever they are called as. So I think a strong payment mechanism, strong supply chain mechanism, and ultimately, I think you plug both of them together and effectively deliver. So in each of the value chain, you make money out of it. And that's where I believe that I think the Reliance's game plan is, I think, more reassuring. Though they may have come late in this particular game to a certain extent, I believe that I think they have got a significant amount of mileage they have already scored. On one side, they have cornered, I think, about 1 crore worth of Kirana merchant, made them JioMart stores. On the other side, I think they have put in their POS terminals and I think given them the supply chain logistics along with by supplying the goods and services, whatever they are. And now putting the framework for the payment, which is basically once again giving that I think entire value chain proposition is fully captured by them. So in my viewpoint, I think this could be, I think, one sure shot as far as I think the ability to make money is concerned. Remember well that I think the ability to make money in this entire ecosystem is extremely important, particularly in the disruptive businesses like this. So that's where I believe that I think the strategy is playing a little bit more smarter and far more deeper than their peers.
Right. Well, one company that has had a good run for the last 1 year has been Cummins India. The stock is up over 100% in the last 1 year. Reported numbers yesterday, And while the numbers look pretty phenomenal, it seems like it could be a tough FY25 to begin with for the first couple of quarters for Cummins India. We caught up with the management earlier this morning to get a sense of when he's expecting exports to rebound and whether or not they can hold on to those margins that they've reported. Hear out what exactly Mr. Ram had to tell us.
I think exports are getting ready to bottom out. There are still all of these geopolitical crises in the Middle East. China is still not picked up completely. Africa has a lot of currency-related problems. Latin America has slowed down. Europe has slowed down a lot. So we are seeing demand across all of our export markets is down. And we expect it to probably bottom out by next quarter and then start to recover again. So the short-term outlook is slightly bearish as far as the export markets are concerned. But the long-term outlook continues to remain positive because we've got so many new products and so many more markets that we can reach.
Right, that's Cummins management talking to us earlier today. Soni, you want to come in on this one? It's done a pretty good run in the last one year, about 100% returns. The last few days, though, have been a little tough for the stock. Do you feel like it's stuck in a range and maybe in a void right now? Or on the charts, it feels like it's fairly bullish and hence fresh longs could be initiated?
Zamina, it's actually at a good place to take a risk on the longer side. The support of 3450 is still holding. And also it has seen very strong rollovers, mostly on the longer side. So I think just keeping a stop loss of 3450 and not much risk beyond that. So I think one can just reinitiate a longs. It can bounce up to 3700. So it's a good risk reward ratio, setting up to be a bit favorable also. I think that, the levels can get tested in the coming days.
So that's the story with Cummins. The other stock in focus has been Apollo Hospitals, reported a steady set of March numbers in line actually. The company's profit jumped 77% while margins have improved. The reason that's in line is that this is a traditionally good quarter for the space. The stock's still about 1.5% up, a little off its day's lows though. We spoke earlier today with Managing Director Sunita Reddy on their expansion plans, a timeline and operationalization for the same. Listen in.
No, it's a mixture of greenfield and brownfield. So our expansion plans currently are to add 2,000 beds. And this will be, in Gurgaon, we're adding 450 beds. In Hyderabad, we're adding 300 plus an additional 100. In Calcutta, we're adding 250 that could go up to 300. In Pune, we're adding 400 beds. So, this is a network-wide expansion that covers the north, the west, the east, and the south. This would come on stream from 2025, where we'll have close to 1,000 beds coming on stream, where every year we'll be opening for the next 5 years about 800 beds, 500 to 800 beds. So our current base is 8,000 operating beds. We have we have, including managed beds, it is 10,000 beds. So we're adding 2,000 beds with the potential to add another 2,000 beds. And it is both greenfield and brownfield.
Okay, so that's the story in Apollo Hospitals. And, we took Sony's view earlier on it as well. But just in the last bit, Devin, I wanted to know your take on metals. Metals have seen a fantastic rebound today. And if you pull up some of those counters, Jindal Stainless ruling the roost. Of course, Adani and Sectoral also boosting it. The metal index also up. But we'll pull up the components for a second to just see what's really working in Jindal Stainless there, or right on top, 14% up. Ratnamani, NMDC, Hindustan Zinc, Vedanta, all of them got badgered yesterday. Tata Steel, which was completely pummeled in recovery mode. Devin, do you think from a longer term view, metals is still a good bet?
Unquestionably, yes, absolutely. Right, because of on one side, we have got a significant amount of new demand getting generated. In each and every area of activity, be it in the area of renewables, be it in the area of data centers, be it in the area of infrastructure, even the mobility, transportations. In each of these areas of activity, I think the higher demand for metal is being generated. So that's fundamentally very positive. And India as an economy, which is a center of the growth in the world, out here, I think the demand is going to grow and grow systematically higher year after year in the subsequent period. On the other side, despite of wars and other problems which are connected with the world, I think still the energy cost, which is an input cost for metal as a commodity, I think has remained under control level and it is not going up. On the top of it, I think the sweetener is coming in. You have the green hydrogen, which is now going to be used as a source of fuel, particularly as an energy for production of metal. Should that be the situation going forward in the next 5-7 years? Probably with the cost of green hydrogen coming down, I believe that this could be, game changer for metal commodity.
Okay.
Well, Devin, it's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Of course, we'll connect back next week when things are going to be so much more exciting. But thank you, Devin. Thank you, Sony. Great having both of you on the show. That was the last few conversations just before we go into next week, which becomes very volatile and very hectic for traders. 30 seconds to go. It does seem, Tamanna, it's been volatile. It's been in a tight range. We've interestingly closed about 22,500. So remember, we opened about 22,500, went all the way up to 22,620, then traded sub 22,500 for most part of the day, but going on with marginal gains. So there's some amount of excitement, optimism coming in, who's to tell, but a 60-point gain on the Nifty 50 is what we have. The breadth of the market wasn't too bad either. The Sensex also going on with marginal gains. That's how the advanced decline ratio looked. It is tilted towards the declining stocks, but remember, the breadth itself wasn't as bad as we've seen on some of the other days this week. The index, though, is down about 1.2% to be precise, from Monday to Friday this week, which isn't too bad given that we made record highs only last week in trade. So we're off about 2.5% from our record highs of 23,100. Right. Well, that's how the Nifty 50 looked. The bias was on some of the selling stocks. You had defensive names that saw some pressure. Auto ahead of numbers was slightly weaker. But I think the Adani Group stocks was single-handedly the stars of today. And if the gains in today's market have to be attributed to anybody, it's got to be Adani Enterprise. A 7% up move was seen on the counter, followed by Adani Ports, which is up 4%. The last time we saw these big gains on the stock was last week, when there was an expectation that Adani Enterprise would be making its way into the Sensex. It turned out to become Adani Ports. Metals had a pretty good day. Some of your auto counters did okay. Apollo Hospitals had a good quarter. Tamanna had spoken to them. They clearly indicated that FY25 looks quite promising. L&T, Indus, and some of the other big gainers. Yeah. But all in all, Tamanna, it's not a bad day of trade. I think it's peaceful, it's calm.
I want to just pull up the weekly charts. You talked about the Nifty, but let's pull up weekly charts for the Nifty, mid cap and small cap, to see how the whole week has played out now that markets have closed, because this is a week that definitely the market will remember. It's been a tough one. So actually, on the week, the Nifty is down 1.5%. Not bad considering how some of it was looking. You started off strong and then a bit of recovery. I would say Friday is a bit of a relief rally, like we said in the morning. I want to pull up the mid cap and small cap indices
this
as well.
Has happened after we made 23,100 last week. So irrespective of, irrespective of elections, it'd be only healthy to consolidate, right?
And you're setting a pace for a positive surprise if that's what's being seen. The mid cap down about 1% odd, and we'll pull up the small cap as well before we go to the major movers in the broader markets today. You're down about 2% on the small cap as well. All in all, you started off strong this week. You were wobbled in the middle a bit, and you're closing off not too badly at all. I just want to pull up the key movers on the BSE 500 as we close down. Some of those stocks that really moved on either side, and a lot of it results based on the upside. Jindal Stainless, absolute star. You know, your metal stocks and your realty stocks, those two indices were the top gainers. Again, you see Adani Total, Adani Power. So that theme continues. Ratnamani Metals once more, if I look at that entire metal space. On the losing side, a Welspun, IPCA, all of this is results impact. Swan Energy, all of this is results impact. We're done with results season. Focus shifts to exit polls 1st June. We'll be covering that for you. 2nd June, Sunday, you'll be watching top market experts talking about what to do on 3rd. And of course, you know where to find us on the morning of 3rd June and 4th. So with that, thank you for watching the show from Sabina, me, and the team that put it together. Thank you so much. Stay tuned. A lot more coming up on the other side.